Hi everyone, what's up? I hope everything goes well. I'm gonna start a couple of different free Cinema4D tutorials, and this one gonna be the first one. Hope you enjoy it. So in this one, I'm going to teach you how to create a cigarette into Cinema4D and render this out with Redshift materials and lights. So to start, you need to create a cylinder. I'm gonna rotate the cylinder. I press shift, you see, to snap the shift to 90 degree. I resize it a little, something like this, and in MoGraph I create the Voronoi fracture, assign this cylinder to Voronoi fracture, and as you see, immediately it turns to small parts. So in Voronoi fracture, in object tab, I disable the colorize fragment, and then I assign the MoGraph effector called plane effector. For the parameter, I can set the scale in uniform scale, set this to something like -0.6, set the rotation to 360 for all axes. Alright, and in Voronoi fracture, as you see, these are some hollow objects, so I'm gonna create geometry just by press optimize and close holes, and I have solid objects. So you can select this source and add more points, something like that. And in plane effector, in fall off, I create a linear fall off. So here I'm gonna just rotate the fall off 180 degrees. So you see this fall off controls the plane effector easily by changing it. I'm gonna scale it a little, and just to have a smoother contour, change it to the curve mode. Alright, so these are separate objects. We need to stick them together, create one solid objects. To do that, here is the magic. In Cinema4D, there is a new thing called volume builder. Create a volume builder, volume measure, assign this to volume measure, and then assign your object to volume builder. That's it. You have one solid object. To get more details, I would select volume builder, and in the voxel size I change it to something like 2, and as you see, it will start to show more details, but maybe I change it to 3. And to fill up those holes, you can do some different stuff. So one of them is to use the reshape layer, and as you see, it fills the holes. Maybe it's too much, change it to something like 3, and then I'm gonna change this scale to something smaller, and you can play with the Voronoi fracture sources. You can add shader, for example, and create a noise, and you can change the noise type to different type of noises to get different results, and you can also play with the amount of points. You see, you get different results. So I'm gonna leave it to something like 200. Alright, this is the whole idea to create the ash. So maybe this one, if it's higher, you get more details, you see something like that. Alright, And probably for this one I would just leave it to something like 4 to have a lighter viewport and, you know, better result. Okay, so after this is optional but can give you, I mean, more realistic results. If you look carefully to some Google images of the cigarette, you see it's not that perfect. So you need to subtract some part of this ash. To do that, again, you have different options, but I would just create one shader field. In that shader field, you can assign a noise, and I would just put it in the builder, and immediately it creates, you see this field. So first of all, I would make sure it covers the whole thing. Select the volume builder, shader. I would change this to something like, not this one, it was wrong, 100. Perfect. 400 and 100. Perfect. So now I'm gonna subtract this one from the above one, and you need to play with the noise here. I'm gonna show you. So you see that by changing the low clip you get different result. Also you can play with the scale to something different, or play with the actual type of the noise. So let's say I put in fire and change it to 400, maybe 200. Okay, so as you see, it start to, I mean, subtract some areas. All right, for creating the cover, this is the whole idea. You can play with the old type of noises, I mean, parameters, amount, to get different result and more accurate result. And again, it depends on your artistic vision. So I would just press Control, hold Control, and drag the cylinder, put it here, and then put this here, make this a little smaller, just to use it for the paper of the cigarette, and to make it random and that create that burning effects. You can easily create a sphere and change it, create another volume builder and volume measure, make it as a child, and child. All right, so you just need to select, put this sphere on top, and subtract. As you see, it start to subtract. But if I add details, so let's say 3, so first of all I see these edges, and also it's pretty straight line. To fix these two issues, first I would select the cylinder, add more subdivision, it fixes. Also you can put smooth layer with type of median and set this to 1. And to make that burning effect, you can just add a displacer just by holding Shift and displace, and add a noise. There we go, it start to shape. You can add more contrast, you can play with the scale to get different results. All right, so this is the whole idea to create the cigarette. I'm gonna change this to one object, you know, make sure that there is no procedural geometry here. You can just right click on whatever you have in Cinema4D and set current state to object, so it changed to one object without any deformer effect or anything. I would do this for this one as well, and then I would just save it and make incremental save, and then you can just delete these volume builders. All right, So I'm gonna rename it to paper and rename this to ash, and then shift control alt G to make it a null, and cigarette. All right, you even don't need the plane effector. That's it. So we have now the cigarette. Just to make it a real more realistic, I can add a plane, I can add a bend effector to the ash. I would select the ash, shift and click on the bend. So you can fit to parent, let's say -20. The reason I put it to -20 because I'm gonna show that it affects by gravity, but the direction is wrong. I'm gonna just shift control 90° rotate, and then select again parent, and now just by changing, you see that it's just like real world. Okay, it should be real subtle. I think this is too much, so maybe -12. Yeah, that is much better. All right, so this is the geometry. Next step is to create the texture and just add some light to it. To do that, I'm gonna create one redshift material, assign the material. It seems it's loading, just give it a second. All right, so assign this to the object, which is the ash. Double click on the material, it pops up the shader graph. In shader graph, I'm gonna create a ramp and one curvature. These are the only things you need to create the ash effect. Input and assign this directly to the diffuse. So for the properties, base properties, you don't need any reflection. So turn on the reflection, and just as a quick test, I would go to redshift render view, and just render it. All right. So as you see these different results, and it creates by the curvature. You can change this max to get, you see, different results easily. And I would just put a light, area light for now. You can easily create a target, add target tag and null. By default it creates that, and you can put it on top. I would just make it a little bigger, put it on top, and set this to something like 30. Okay, I can duplicate the light by control and left click. Oops, I just pressed hold control and click every time, so I'm gonna delete these. All right, I'm gonna put it down. So you can lock this render view and then go to the other views. Make sure that, okay, so this is the light. I don't need this one. Can also make this from a little behind, you know, to make some rim light effect. And now just click on the color. I can add some blue tint to make it a little, more cinematic. Also, you can create a redshift environment and create some tint blue like this, and in volume I can add just a little environment to it, so something like this. Okay, perfect. So to continue working on material, I need to create the material for the paper. So let's create another material just assigned to the paper. Double click on that. You can turn off the reflection, but in reality you have some reflection with really high roughness. So I would just set it to this something like this. You can also add some backlight, but you don't see the result because we didn't set up any GI. So go to the render setting in Redshift GI. You can set this to brute force. Now you see the result. All right, and it should be something really subtle. I would leave it to 0.1 for now, and I create a ramp. Assign the ramp to the diffuse. Okay, so let's see what happened now. As you see, when I play with the ramp, this color, the black color affects here. So it seems that we don't have a proper UV. I would just stop it for a sec, close all the windows, make sure you save your file, change this to UV edit, and then I would select this, the whole geometry, select this icon, select faces, double click, select all faces, and then just select frontal UV. That's it. That's all you need. You can get back to the standard, and then now you have the UV. If I open up the Redshift render view, you will see when I play with the okay, you see that? Now I just need to change it to horizontal. Bam, that's it. This is what you need. I will change it to, and also you need some burning color like this, and there we go. Okay, so here is a tip to create it more realistic. Because you create a frontal UV, you have this really strong straight line. So just to fix it, you can add a little noise, you see, to make it more realistic. That's it. This is the only thing you need. So that's the whole idea. You can also add some, I don't know, emission, just like this. I would create, so let me show you how you can create that. Let me resize this window. Okay, so this is the material we have for the ash. To make it more realistic, you can add more detail to the material. For example, we can add displacement. So I would create just a displacement node, and I would create a noise. Let me attach this to texture input, and then you should attach the displacement to the output. Don't look for it in the material. To the output displacement. All right. So, but you don't see the result even if I have any strong number in the noise. The reason you don't see the result is because you don't have any tag, Redshift tag in the ash geometry. So I would add Redshift tag and geometry tab, override, click on this guy. You can set this to something like 3, and also enable displacement. So just as a tip, let me turn this off. If you look carefully, you see some polygons here. This can be helpful just by, you see it smooths all those polygons issues. So we enabled the displacement. Now to see that, let's make sure we have enough scale, and in the noise, let me change it to something like cell. Okay, let's see why it doesn't. Okay, there we go. So you see, I changed the scale, and now I see the result. Okay, I can play with it to get different results. So I'm kind of happy with this. Maybe, yeah. Okay, there we go. You can also play with the colors, to get different results. And again, it's really artistic and up to you. And to create some burning effects inside the ash, you can create another ramp. And then in preset, I would select this guy, and then you can assign this to the overall emission color. But if I turn on the emission, so this is what you see, and this is not real, right? So now the only thing you need is the curvature. You can create the curvature again here, or just control and click on this one to duplicate this guy. So let's just okay, here the ramp, I would just input this ramp, and then let me change this to something smaller. There we go. And this is the burning effect that I just created. And you can play with the ramp. I guess this should be in reverse mode. So I can select whole gradient, right click, and invert selected nodes. And yeah, I think I was wrong. Control Z, make this, I would just make this a little smaller or tighter, and then in curvature I can change this. Yeah, perfect. All right. That's it, I think. Let me turn off. Yeah, you see that, but I just turned off the light to see the effects better, because it's affecting by the light too much. I can turn this to something like 15. All right, that's it. And please let me know if you have any questions. I will answer you definitely in comments. And yeah, you can subscribe if you like, because this is the plan. I'm going to create a bunch of different free Cinema4D tutorials. Good luck.